Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to talk about diving in the Philippines. So, I've been to the Philippines many times, I think about 19 times in the last 10 years. I first learned to dive in the Philippines, so I do have quite a bit of experience. And a lot of my friends ask me about advice. I'm always very happy to share my advice, so I thought I'd make a video about it. So, why dive in the Philippines? Well, first of all, it does have some of the best diving in the world. Maybe not the best diving, but it does have very good diving. It's quite a large area. There's 7,000 islands. There's many different places where you can go diving, but generally speaking, it is very good diving. It may not be the best place for large animals, so if you want to see like huge sharks and whales and whatnot, it's not really the place to go. But if you like really colorful coral reefs, if you like macro, like small stuff, photography, etc., it is very good. So one thing I like about diving in the Philippines is that I live in Vancouver, which is on the west coast of Canada. So it's easy to get to. It's a direct flight, so it's fairly easy access. I think it's probably the best value for your money. You might say, well, maybe Indonesia is a little bit better, but Philippines is a direct flight, and I think generally quite a bit cheaper. Another thing I like about the Philippines is that the people are very, very friendly. They really want they want to make sure that the guests have a good time. They really appreciate the tourism dollars that people bring. So the people in the Philippines are generally very friendly. They're really service oriented. They really want to make sure that you have a good time. So I really enjoy interacting with the Filipinos. They are, great people. And generally speaking, if you go to the major dive areas, you're going to find a range of resorts from budget to luxury. I've never really been to like a bad resort. Basically, you get what you pay for. If you're on a tight budget, you're going to find lots of cheaper places to go to. If you've got a larger budget, there are some luxury places that you can go to. And basically, there's no bad place to go to. They're all good. Basically, you get what you pay for. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some general advice. Number one, make sure your passport is valid for at least 6 months from the time you enter the country. If your passport does not have at least 6 months of validity, you will get turned away at the airport, or even worse, you'll get turned around when you land in the Philippines. So just make sure you got at least 6 months valid on your passport before you go. Now, when you arrive in the Philippines, you are granted an automatic 30-day visa. If you want to stay longer than 30 days, I'm jealous, you're lucky. There's a couple of different options. Number one is you can actually apply for a longer visa before you leave. You can go to your local Philippine consul office or embassy office or whatnot, and you can apply for a longer visa even before you leave. So I think for 60 days total, you're going to pay like, I think $60 or something like that. Now the other option is when you're in the Philippines, you can go to one of these, I think Department of Immigration or there's ways to extend your visa when you're already in the Philippines. Okay, so other advice is that the traffic in Manila is really bad. So one thing that I like about the flight from Vancouver to Manila is that you usually arrive quite early in the morning, like usually like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So there's not too much traffic at that time, so it's easy to kind of get away to wherever you're going. But if you're landing like in the middle of the day or in the evening, the traffic in Manila is terrible. So you may wish to arrive on a Sunday because that's the easiest day to kind of get around if you're traveling to a resort somewhere. Another important piece of advice is try to avoid visiting too many areas in one visit. There are 7,000 islands in the Philippines. Don't try seeing them all in one trip. If you have 2 weeks, I would say maybe 2 areas is good, maybe 3. I would say minimum 5 days at any given place. You will lose about a day just transferring from one area to another. Of course, like some places, if they're close together, you might lose only half a day. But generally speaking, you're going to lose a day transferring. So if you're trying to see like 10 places in 10 days, you will not enjoy your holiday at all. You're just going to spend your whole time in transfer, sitting at the airport or in traffic or something. So I would suggest maybe one resort or one area every 5 to 7 days. The most common mistake I see people making is trying to cram too many destinations in too short a time. Okay, money. So there is this really kind of strange rule. You're not allowed to bring or leave the country with more than 10,000 pesos. So 10,000 pesos is about $200. Right now the exchange rate is 50 pesos for 1 US dollar. So the best thing to do is bring some US dollars. You can bring Canadian too if you're a Canadian, but the US dollar is the easiest one, sort of more universal to change. So bring enough cash, and when you arrive at the airport, there are some money changers at the airport. As soon as you exit the terminal, they offer a fairly reasonable rate. So change some of your money, maybe half or two-thirds of it, change it into Philippine pesos. You will need the Philippine pesos for the small stuff, like if you're paying for your meals or taxi, whatnot. You can use US dollars for the larger things like diving or accommodations. A lot of people use their ATMs. I personally don't like to use my ATM in the Philippines. I find the machines are unreliable. Oftentimes they're offline. The amount of money that you can withdraw is quite small usually, so you can't really withdraw a large amount of money. And of course your bank is going to give you all these surcharges when you take out the money. I do use a credit card as a backup. Sometimes if I'm running low on cash, I'll just use my credit card. But if you're in the sort of more remote areas, usually the credit card is going to have a bit of a surcharge of about 5%. So if you want to save money, use cash, but bring your credit card, of course. So if you're going from Vancouver, it is a direct flight. It's about 12, they say 13 hours, but it's a little bit padded. I think it's about 12 hours, really. So it is a direct flight from Vancouver flying into Manila. I've always flown Philippine Airlines, like 19 times I've been there, and never had a problem, never lost my luggage, never was significantly late, usually always on time or a bit early. I think the maximum late I was ever was like 45 minutes. So in all those 19 times going, I've never had a problem. So I really like Philippine Airlines. Their service is great. They're very friendly. I know a lot of people, to save money, they will take one of the sort of low budget airlines going through China. I don't know why people do that. I mean, you save a couple $100, but it's not worth it because you have a stopover and a risk of getting late. And some of these sort of lower budget airlines do have a reputation for being delayed. So my recommendation is fly Philippine Airlines. Now the luggage allowance is good. Make sure you fly regular economy. Budget economy, sometimes you're only allowed one bag. If you have dive gear, you're probably going to need two bags. So regular economy is 2 pieces of 23 kilograms or 50 pounds. So that's fairly generous. And the flight from Vancouver, you're looking at about usually $1,200. Sometimes you could find, I think the cheapest I've seen is $950 on regular economy. Budget economy will be a little bit less, but like I said, you're only allowed 1 piece of luggage, so maybe regular economy is better. Okay, so here's a map of the Philippines. Now, so Manila is here on the main island of Luzon, and in the middle are these smaller islands. That's the Visayas. Now, in the southern part is Mindanao. So most people say don't go to Mindanao because that's where there is some terrorism activity. Actually, specifically sort of the southwestern portion of Mindanao, that sort of the longish peninsula on the western part, that's where you want to avoid going. But if you stick to Luzon and the Visayas and Palawan, Palawan's the island, the long skinny island sort of to the west, those areas are safe. People say, oh, it's dangerous to go to the Philippines. I think it's more dangerous to go to the USA, actually. I think I've never really felt in danger in the Philippines. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about Anilao. So Anilao, the nice thing about Anilao, it is close to Manila. It's about a 2-hour drive, so it's very convenient, and it also has excellent diving. So I highly recommend this place. It is probably the best macro diving in the world, or maybe second best. A lot of people might say that Lembeh in Indonesia might be the best macro diving in the world, but Anilao would be a very close second. So Anilao and Lembeh are the two best places for macro diving, I think, in the world. So if you like macro, if you like small critters, if you're into photography, definitely check out Anilao. So how to get to Anilao? So here's a map. So you're going to fly into the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which is just sort of south of Manila. My advice is just get the resort to pick you up, arrange for a private car or van, and they will drive you to your resort in Anilao. It's about a 2 to 2.5 hour drive depending on traffic. So the only con of Anilao is that there's not really much to do besides diving. If you're an avid diver, that's no problem at all. But if you have people in your group that are not into diving, there's not really a whole heck of a lot to do besides diving. So here's a map of the area. So actually, everyone calls it Anilao, but it's actually the Calumpan Peninsula. That whole peninsula has got some excellent diving. And there's also Maricaban Island, which has some excellent diving, and it's about, depending on where your resort is, from the sort of main, from the mainland, it's like a 30-minute boat ride or something. So all of these sites are world class. Some are very, very good for macro, some are very good for wide angle, but excellent, excellent diving in that area. So I'll just show you a couple of photos. Here's a fire dartfish I took, a picture of a fire dartfish, a little cute octopus inside a bottle, and here's a little cuttlefish, very colorful. So yeah, really good for photography. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about Puerto Galera, which is just across the channel from Anilao. It's called the Batangas Channel, so it's on the island of Mindoro. So the pros of Puerto Galera is that the diving is quite good in general, and there's quite a variety of diving. It's good for technical diving, it's good for taking a course. There's some nice drift diving, there's macro, it's good for photography, so it's got a little bit of everything. So it's going to appeal to pretty much everybody. The other good thing about Puerto Galera is that it's actually a little bit cheaper than other places in the Philippines. There are quite a large number of dive shops concentrated into a small area, and it seems that Puerto Galera has kind of fallen off the radar a little bit. It's not as popular as it used to be. So, business is down and the prices are pretty low. You might pay like 25 bucks for a dive, basically. Yeah, good value. It's easy to get to from Manila. And also, compared to Anilao, there is more topside stuff to do, like hikes and tours. There's beaches, there's waterfalls. So if you want to take a day or two off of diving, there's other stuff to do. So I'll just show you on this map. So if you fly into Manila Airport, you're going to take about a 2-hour drive to Batangas. It's called the Southern Luzon Expressway. It's a tollway. It's quite fast once you're on the highway. My recommendation is just get the resort to arrange for a private vehicle to pick you up and drive you to Batangas. Now, when you get to Batangas, it's a boat ride. It's about, well, it depends on how fast your boat is, but it's about an hour crossing. And there's two options. One is the public banca from the public pier. It's only about $10, but the problem with that is that I find Batangas Pier, the public pier, is kind of sketchy. There are some bad people there that want to steal from you. There's a lot of scams. You really need to have your wits about you. So I would suggest go there only if you are a seasoned traveler. I've heard many stories about people getting scammed in Batangas. For example, my friend, they were in a van, they were a large family, and some bad person gave the driver directions to some remote area that was not where they were supposed to go, and then they almost got robbed of all their luggage. So just be careful. If you're going to take the public pier, be very, very careful. Don't accept a ride or advice or directions from people that don't have ID. Now, if you're a group of people, like say more than 2 people, and it's actually no problem to just hire a private banca. It's going to cost about $100. Your resort can arrange it for you, and it's quite a nice little luxury. Instead of going to the public pier, the driver can take you to a private pier where it's much more safe, and you can hop onto a private boat, and your party of 2 or 4 or 6 or whatever, you guys can just take the private boat, and they'll take you directly. Depending on where your resort is, they can take you directly to your resort. So that's quite nice. And they'll charge you like 4,000 pesos or 5,000 pesos, which is like basically $100. So, if you're a group of people, it's not bad. So here's a map of the area. So Puerto Galera itself, there's no real diving in Puerto Galera, the little town of Puerto Galera, which is in the sort of in that protected area on the map. Most of the diving is in Sabang, where all the dive sites are concentrated. And so basically, for all those dive sites that are concentrated on that little peninsula of Sabang, you're going to come back between every dive. If you're going further afield, like for example, Verde Island has some nice wide angle diving. That's about a 40-minute boat ride. It is very, very good diving there. But that's something that can be arranged with your dive shop. They need usually like a minimum of 6 people to make the trip, and that would be like a day trip where you go out for 2 or 3 dives. And also you can see that Anilao is not too far away. I think from Puerto Galera to Anilao is about a 90-minute boat ride. And it's a nice combination. I've done it when I've been leading groups of divers. We'll do Puerto Galera for 5 to 7 days, and then we'll hire a private banca to transfer from Puerto Galera directly to Anilao. So it's about 90 minutes boat ride, and they'll charge you like 6,000 pesos, which is about 100 and some odd dollars. So if you're a group of people, it's quite affordable, and it's quite an easy transfer. So here's another map that just shows all the dive sites. So most of the dive sites are concentrated around Sabang, which is in the middle of that peninsula. And also there's some nice diving sort of scattered around there. So what are the cons of Puerto Galera? Well, I think one con is that Sabang Beach, it's kind of poorly planned. it kind of sprung up quite quickly as a diving place in the 70s, and it was quite unregulated. And the dive resorts and the restaurants and the bars are all just kind of piled on top of each other without any real planning. So that's one downside to it. The other downside to it is that the nightlife is a bit sketchy. It's not going to appeal to everybody. They do cater to the single male diver. If you're not into that, you're probably not going to like it. But that's easily avoided, actually. All you have to do is go to bed early or go for a night dive. You're not going to necessarily be exposed to that kind of stuff. So here's a picture I took from Small La Laguna, which is a little bit quieter than Sabang. So that's sort of overlooking towards Verde Island. And if you look to the right, that's actually the little bay where Sabang is. I usually stay in Small La Laguna or Big La Laguna, which is about a 10-minute walk away. And it's a little bit quieter there. So I like macro photography. So here's a little nice macro shot of a little juvenile filefish I took in Puerto Galera. And here's a blue ring octopus, always a top in the bucket list for macro photographers. So next I'm going to talk about Malapascua. So Malapascua is in the Visayas, and Malapascua is famous for the thresher shark. So it's the only place in the world where you have a chance to see a thresher shark reliably. Every morning at dawn, like around 6 a.m., the thresher sharks come to a place called Monad Shoal to be cleaned by the cleaner fish, and a lot of the dive shops will organize a boat going out there every morning. I think it's about a 30-minute boat ride. You have to get up quite early, like 5 a.m. or 4:30 or something. And yeah, you're pretty much guaranteed to see thresher sharks, which is really nice. So Malapascua does have excellent all-round diving. It's a really nice, cute little island. It does have a small local population. It's got a beautiful sand beach. It's really quite idyllic and quiet. It does take a bit of effort to get there, and I'll show you how to get there. So now you can fly, depending on where you're coming from, you can fly internationally into Cebu City. But if you're flying into Manila, you're going to fly from Manila to Cebu. It's a 1-hour flight, and the flights are quite frequent. There's probably like 10 flights a day. So you fly into Cebu City. My advice is get the resort to arrange your transfer. They can pick you up at the airport and drive you. So here's another map. So you fly into Cebu, and then you will drive to the northern tip of Cebu Island. It's about a 3-hour drive. You're going to end up at the northern tip, which is called Daan Batayan. And then the resort will arrange for you to transfer by boat to Malapascua Island. So there's the beach at dawn, with the little doggy there. So this is the famous thresher shark. Pretty much the only place in the world where you're going to see thresher sharks reliably. And here's a little ornate ghost pipefish with eggs. So that's another picture that I took in Malapascua. So yeah, Malapascua is nice. I've been there twice. So next I'm going to talk about Bohol, which is near Cebu. Most of the diving is centered around Panglao Island, and most of the resorts are clustered around Alona Beach. And Alona Beach is really nice. It's a really nice setting, nice beach. A lot of people go there just for the atmosphere and the setting. So there's a lot of non-divers that go there as well. And so there's a good assortment of topside activities if you want to take a break from the diving. So here's another map of the Philippines. So there's Bohol. It's a round island in the middle there. So here's another map. So actually, Bohol is not far from Cebu. So, it is possible to kind of transfer between these areas within maybe half a day or so. So if you want to see, a couple of destinations, these are ones that are kind of close together. So here's a map of, so the main city in Bohol is called Tagbilaran, and there's the airport there. I think they're actually building a new airport right now, I think in Tagbilaran. And so most of the resorts are on Panglao Island, which is connected to the main island of Bohol by a causeway. So from the airport to your resort on Panglao is going to be like a half-an-hour drive. And yeah, just get the resort to pick you up at the airport. So most of the resorts are on Alona Beach, which is basically the beach on sort of the south side of the island. Beautiful white sand beach. And lots of dive sites in the area. For example, Balikasag Island, sort of on the sort of southwest corner of the map there. And also, yeah, there's just many dive sites there. So here's a picture I took in Bohol with a diver looking at a frogfish. Here's a macro shot of a little filefish, kind of disguised. And there's also topside activities like the Chocolate Hills. There's the tarsier, which is a little, very small primate, very cute with huge eyes. It's a nocturnal primate that eats cockroaches and stuff. So very cute. So you do have the chance to go visit the tarsier if you want to take a day off from diving. Here's a picture I took many years ago of us visiting the tarsier in Bohol. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about Dumaguete. So Dumaguete is also in the Visayas. It's on Negros Island. Dumaguete City is just south of the southern tip of Cebu. So if you're in Cebu, there is a ferry to cross over. If you're in Manila, it's a flight from Manila. It's about a 1 hour flight. I think there's about 4 to 5 flights a day. So it's fairly easy to get to Dumaguete. And most of the diving is around Dawin. Dawin's a town about a half an hour drive south of Dumaguete. So now Darwin and Dumaguete are known for sort of the black sand muck diving, and it is excellent diving. It's almost as good as Anilao, I would say. But there is very good coral reef dives as well, and nearby Apo and Siquijor Islands. Now also, there is whale sharks that you can see at Oslob. I'll show you on the map where it is, but it's a little bit controversial because the whale sharks are being fed by the local fishermen, so they kind of hang around there. So they're not totally in their natural state. So it is controversial. Some people think it's not good, but if you do want to see whale sharks, there is the opportunity to snorkel or possibly dive with them at Oslob, which is accessible from Dumaguete as a day trip. So yeah, Dumaguete's nice. It's it's got an airport, it's got a shopping mall, it's a city of about 100,000 people, and so it does have some of the amenities of a larger city. But the diving just south of Dumaguete is very good. So I'm just going to show you on the map here. So you fly into Dumaguete City, but the whole coast south of Dumaguete is all really good macro diving, and Apo Island and Siquijor Island have good coral reef diving as well. So it is possible to stay on Apo and Siquijor as well. Now Apo is quite small. I don't know if I would recommend staying there. I think I would just do it as a day trip from Darwin. But Siquijor does have a number of dive resorts, and I'm actually going to go visit. My friend actually has a dive operation on Siquijor, and I'm going to go check it out next month. And as you can see on the map there, there's Oslob on the southern tip of Cebu. So it is possible to do a day trip from Darwin or Dumaguete and go to Oslob if you want to see the whale sharks. So here's an example of the black sand in Darwin. That's a wonderpuss octopus, I believe. Yeah, so a nice thing to photograph. And here's a blue ring octopus. I like octopuses. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about Coron, which is in Palawan. So Palawan's that long, skinny island sort of west of the Philippines. So I'm going to talk about Coron, which has the best, or maybe I guess second best shipwreck diving in the world. Most people would say that Chuck Lagoon has the best shipwreck diving in the world, but you can maybe argue that Coron has the second best. So what happened is that in September of 1944, there was about 24 Japanese ships hiding around Coron Bay, and the U.S. Navy was aware of where they were, and they sent out a strike force. At the time, it was the longest range attack from an aircraft carrier. I think it was about 500 miles away in Leyte Gulf, and they came and they saw the 24 ships, and they bombed them all down and sank all 24 ships, and today about 12 of these wrecks are diveable. So to get to Coron, you're going to fly from Manila. It's about a 40-minute flight. Again, if you can, try to make it part of your international ticket so you get your international baggage allowance. Coron has very nice, beautiful landscape. It's raised limestone, so it's a little bit different topography than the rest of the Philippines, so it's very beautiful. It is a very popular tourist destination for sort of general backpackers and tourists. Yeah, it's got some unique dives. It's good for shipwreck diving, and also there's some unique saltwater lagoons or lakes that have some very unique diving as well, with all kinds of weird thermoclines and haloclines and stuff. So it's got some unique diving. Like I said, there's good topside activities as well. Most Filipinos say that Coron or Palawan is remote, but if you have money to buy a plane ticket, it's actually fairly easy to get there. So here's a map showing some of the shipwrecks. So most of the shipwrecks are in Coron Bay. So the airstrip is sort of in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the island, and there are sort of resorts kind of scattered everywhere, but I guess the highest concentration of resorts are around the town of Coron. And this map sort of shows where the shipwrecks are. So here's an example of the sort of beautiful landscape that you can see there, which is a bit different than the rest of the Philippines. So that's it. Those are the sites that I'm familiar with that I would recommend for a tourist coming from overseas. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below.